Hi everyone, Meteorologist Brian Bennett here on your Tuesday, May 22nd. Wanted to give you a quick update on the potential tropical depression or tropical storm that we could have develop in the Gulf of Mexico as we move into the Memorial Day weekend. Now, all the heavy rain that we've seen the last couple of days, actually not part of a tropical system, just a very juicy atmosphere, a very wet start to the wet season, which started about 10 or 11 days ago with a bang. In fact, you can see the showers and storms tracking across central Florida and the Tampa Bay area right now. Some of these downpours are on the heavy side. Some rain falling and already saturated ground. In fact, parts of Polk County have already picked up a foot of rain over the last 10 or 11 days. Parts of St. Petersburg and Pinellas County picked up several inches of rain yesterday, and more heavy rain spreading off to the northwest. So again, a very soggy start to our wet season here in Florida. All right, what about this tropical depression or tropical storm? Right now, we just have kind of a blob of messiness down in the southwestern Caribbean, this area right here. If we do have a tropical depression or tropical storm develop, it's actually going to develop off of this little area in the very western part of all this convection. It would then move off to the north towards the Yucatan and then into the Gulf of Mexico. Looking at the National Hurricane Center projection, they are saying there's a 40% chance that we could see a tropical depression or storm develop over the next 5 days. One thing they do mention in their little discussion here is that we do have dry air aloft, and we also have some upper level wind shear, which is not very good for tropical system development. But if you know me, you know that I like to look back at historical storms, what happens during certain times of the year, as you can likely use that to help you forecast what is going to happen. So take a look at this. This is just a Wikipedia article talking about Tropical Storm Andrea back from 2013. And notice here, the storm had a lot of wind shear to contend with. It had an abundance of dry air, so it's almost like this is being written about the storm that we're potentially going to be contending with as we move into the weekend. So storms can develop even when it's not the most favorable environment. Another thing I wanted to point out about Andrea, it was a very lopsided storm. Look at all the convection and the clouds on the eastern side of the storm here, where the western side of the storm was very quiet. Well, in May and June, we really don't get storms that have that really symmetric, that pretty meteorological look to them. Instead, we get these very lopsided storms with the majority of the rain and the wind and everything else on the right quadrant of the storm. So if we get something develop, it would actually be a very similar scenario with most of the showers and storms being on the right side of the actual center of circulation. All right, I wanted to take a look at the RPM model, the Rapid Precision Mesoscale model, and this only goes out 72 hours, but I'll show you what you can expect over the next couple of days, and then we'll dive into the possibilities with the tropical system. All right, so here we are heading through this evening, and here's Florida right here. The greens and reds represent the potential for rainfall, red representing heavy rainfall. And you can see heading into the evening, we're going to see scattered showers and thunderstorms. Some of these downpours could be on the heavy side. The activity dies down overnight tonight. And then moving into tomorrow morning, we're going to start dry across the Sunshine State. By mid-afternoon, scattered showers and storms develop. Perhaps a little bit of a sea breeze boundary collision there by about sunset tomorrow evening. So not a ton of rain tomorrow, but there will be a few heavy downpours, especially right around I-75. And then moving into Thursday, we start the day off dry. By afternoon, scattered showers and storms once again. But again, nothing that we haven't seen before, just almost a summer-esque pattern with these showers and storms and a humid, wet environment on your Thursday. And then this model only goes out to Friday morning. Let's take it to the last frame there. But you can see that we're starting to see a bit of activity. We're seeing that counterclockwise wind flow develop in the Gulf of Mexico by your Friday. Let's take a look at the global models, the GFS and the European models. These models go out much farther. In fact, they go out 10 days, so we can get a longer range look here. Just a very, very brief look at the GFS or the American model here, because I have to admit this model has been basically garbage over the last couple of days. It keeps predicting the storm to move over very southeastern Florida and then over the Caribbean. That's not going to happen. This potential tropical depression is going to move north into the Gulf of Mexico and more towards the Florida Panhandle. So any solution that takes it over the Keys and into the Caribbean is incorrect. So the GFS model has not been doing very well. With this most recent run, they're starting to pick up on a better solution, which has the storm moving more northerly and more towards the Florida Panhandle. So the American model is starting to catch up, where the European model has actually been nailing where I think this storm's going to go for the last couple of days. So with that said, I'm going to spend the rest of the time here with this forecast to show you what I think is going to happen, and a lot of that's based on the European model here. All right, so this is let's go out to Friday, because that's as far as we could go with the model I showed you a second ago. Here we are on Friday evening. You can see the center of circulation right in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico, but you can see some of these outer rain bands are making their way across Florida. So starting on Friday, we could start to see some heavy downpours from some of the heavier outer rain bands of this potential tropical depression or tropical storm on your Friday, and then moving into Saturday. Here's your Saturday. Now the European model wants to take the center circulation pretty much up into Louisiana and coastal Mississippi, which would mean the heaviest rain would be focused on that area, with some of the heavier rain bands, of course, making their way across Florida. I think this track may be a little bit too far west. My best prediction at this point would be that this center circulation is actually going to move into the Florida Panhandle, Mobile, perhaps as far east as the Big Bend area, somewhere in this general vicinity, which is going to bring Florida the potential for some very heavy rain on some already saturated ground. All right, as we move forward in time, here we are on Sunday. This is what the model's predicting on Sunday, with the low being somewhere over the New Orleans area. Again, that might be a little far west, but nonetheless, even with that westerly track, notice that we're still picking up a lot of greens and blues here, representing some decent rainfall all day long on your Sunday. So even with that westerly track, we're looking at the potential for some heavy rain in Florida. And then moving into Memorial Day itself, still looking at scattered showers and thunderstorms in Florida, and some of that rain spreading up into Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, and Arkansas as well, based on that kind of a westerly track the European is suggesting. All right, so that's the European precipitation forecast. And here's a look at the wind speed estimate. And the green color here represents wind gusts that are about 45 miles per hour. And again, here's the state of Florida right here. So you can see in the immediate coastal areas, right along the beaches, even on that westerly track, we could see a wind gust of about 45 miles per hour, which is, that's something we can see in a normal summertime storm. So wind, not really a huge factor with this storm, unless it happens to really just gain a ton of energy over the Gulf of Mexico, which is not out of the question, just it's kind of unlikely to happen. So wind is not the primary concern out of this storm, although again, not to minimize it, not to say we couldn't have sustained winds of 20 miles per hour with gusts along the immediate coastline right around 45 miles per hour. So going back to Andrea, the maximum wind we saw out of that was a wind gust of 47 miles per hour, and that occurred at Davis Island. So not completely out of the question, but not anything really devastating from a wind standpoint. All right, from a rain standpoint, where you see the red here, this represents 2 to 3 inches of rain between now and about Memorial Day. Notice all the purples that are happening out here in the Gulf of Mexico. That's because the European is expecting the center circulation to be offshore of Florida, which means that these wicked heavy rainfall totals would be falling out where the fishes live, out in the Gulf of Mexico. But these are rain totals that exceed a foot. So if this moves eastward at all, we're going to start to see some of those potentially heavy rain bands on the order of 10 inches, 11 inches, 12 inches, 14 inches of rain possible across parts of Florida. So that's a possibility of something we'll have to keep an eye out for as the storm continues to potentially develop and move off to the north. All right, again, that is the European model. I wanted to show you the Canadian model here. The Canadian model actually doing a good job as well. And it has the potential tropical depression developing over the Yucatan Peninsula on Thursday evening, moving off to the north, And let me slide this over for you so you can see Tampa Bay here. Slide this over. And here we are on Saturday afternoon, and they have this tropical depression or tropical storm west of the Florida Peninsula. But notice some heavy rain bands are moving through parts of Tampa Bay, down through Fort Myers, Cape Coral, even down into Miami. So some heavy downpours possible. Heading into Sunday, we're starting to see, again, a few outer rain bands still moving through Tampa Bay, but the storm moving into the panhandle of Florida, bringing very heavy rain into the panhandle and over the Mobile area. And then on Monday, they actually have the storm moving up into parts of Alabama and kind of quieting down on Memorial Day down south in Tampa Bay. So a lot of uncertainty still with this storm. The bottom line is the models have been predicting a tropical depression or a tropical storm for the last couple of days, and that starts to exude quite a bit of confidence that this is actually going to happen, that we're going to have a tropical system develop. It's not going to be anything we haven't seen before. I don't think wind will be the main threat from this storm. I think on the Florida Peninsula, we're looking at the potential for some more heavy rain, which would be on already saturated ground, so we could see some flooding conditions on your Saturday and Sunday, maybe even into Monday. Even starting as early as Friday evening as well. In addition to heavy rain, the potential for tornadoes. We did see 10 tornadoes out of Andrea across Florida, so in those outer rain bands, you can pick up some tornadoes. So just kind of a heads up at this point that we could see some heavy rain from this storm system, again, mainly Saturday and Sunday as we head into the weekend. A lot of folks are making outdoor plans, so I wanted to make sure you had the latest information. If you have any questions, feel free to write a comment below. And as always, I definitely appreciate your likes and shares. All right, everybody, have a great afternoon, and I'll have another update as soon as anything changes or as we get closer.